G'day guys, Ziggy D here. The other day I did a pretty awesome Q&A sort of / interview session with an Australian Path of Exile guild named Ace. They invited me to come on over to their event, a bunch of people fielded questions, and it was a pretty good time. It was a pretty nice chat, some of the questions were pretty interesting, and I was able to record that, and I thought you guys might be interested in checking out these questions. Now the background footage that you'll be seeing while listening to this little Q&A session is some leveling progression from my Stormcall Templar, which I should be at some point, either before or after these videos, getting a update out for this character, but it's been a pleasure to level, and you'll see kind of how well it breezes through Act 3 content. Anyway, enjoy the Q&A.
Hi all, so this is the first time we've run something like this. It's what we call a guest speaker event, and I guess the inspiration come from business, actually, working in business. I often go along to a lot of conferences or you know, inspiring events from different corporations, and they normally have a guest speaker there for an hour just to speak on sort of industry related topics. I thought, oh, how could we apply this to our guild? So I thought a guest speaker guild event would be something a bit different, a bit cool, and I thought, who could we try to get on as a guest speaker? And I thought, being a fellow Aussie, another fellow person who sleeps underneath the Aplha Crucis, the Southern Cross, no one better than Ziggy D. So what I'm going to do now is throw over to Ziggy. He's going to give you a bit of background about himself and his history, and then we'll go into some questions which we've submitted to Ziggy beforehand. And if you've asked the question, I'll probably throw the question over to you so you can ask it directly to Ziggy. Otherwise, Deefa and myself might ask them, or yeah, like that. If you've got any questions on the fly, please just type Q in the chat message box on the side to flag that you've got a question to ask, and at the next available opportunity, we'll cross over to you for Ziggy to answer your question. So, without any further sort of delay, please welcome Ziggy D.
Awesome, thanks for having me on. It's pretty cool to stop by, even when I was doing StarCraft 2, and I spent a lot of time talking with people from the US and lots of other countries, but even when I was doing StarCraft 2, I'd try and join up with the SEA community there wherever I could, and it's cool to kind of get the chance to chat with you guys here in Australia as well. So there's not enough going on in the Australian community sometimes, and I want to try and get more involved in it. But basically, I am a full-time gamer and YouTuber, and hopefully soon to be streamer. It started about a couple months ago is when I officially went full-time, but I've been working like 8 or 10 hour days on gaming related projects for the past year or two, trying to build this up. And with the launch of Path of Exile especially, things have just been going pretty awesomely. And basically, born in Australia, you know, this should be pretty evident by the accent. You know, I went and did the uni thing. I went and did marketing and management there, and although that was interesting and somewhat helpful, and I did some retail, and I thought, I want to be a retail manager. That's what I thought I wanted to be for a very long time. But after doing retail for a few years and having my brain leak out of my ear, I decided that I had to build something for myself that I was passionate about. And gaming kind of just happened over time out of an interest in StarCraft 2, and eventually transitioning over into Diablo 3 and then Path of Exile. And who knows where in the future, although I expect Path of Exile is going to be a huge part of that for the next decade or so, because the game is going amazing and there's a lot of plans for the years and years to come. So thanks for having me on. I'm eager to get into the questions.
Fantastic. Okay, I'll kick off a question here first, and then Ecstasy's got a couple lined up, so while you're answering that one, I'll just remind Ecstasy which questions he had. Ziggy, what led you to Path of Exile? It's a bit of a sidestep from StarCraft 2 genre over to action RPG, so what led you to Path of Exile, if you can just give us a bit of background there?
The process that I went through, I suppose, doesn't really make that much sense, but the reasoning as to why Path of Exile appeals to me probably does make a bit more sense. Originally I started off mostly doing StarCraft 2. I was infatuated with the game. I loved the depth and complexity of it and how challenging it was. It showed me sort of that gaming could be a very challenging and very rewarding pursuit. So I started doing a lot of writing and eventually did a few YouTube videos for StarCraft, and kind of learned that there's this whole esports community and people that seriously play games and competitive, even people earning a living from it. So that sort of introduced me to that world. And then I sort of did some Diablo 3 from that, so getting into action RPGs. I was always a pretty big fan of Diablo 2. Never really played it as hardcore as I'm sure many of you have, though. I kind of missed the whole Diablo 2 online boat since my internet connection just didn't exist back then. But when Diablo 3 came out, it was pretty exciting, and I covered that on YouTube to the best of my ability, and that was right when I was getting started. And actually, before even Diablo 3 came out, I was looking for something to fill the gap. So I was looking around, and I learnt about this game, Path of Exile, and at that point it was in closed beta, and it was invite only. There was no way to buy in at that point. And kind of like trying to hope to get an invite, I applied, and nothing really happened out of that. Diablo 3 came out, and then shortly after that, I ended up buying into the Path of Exile beta and have been pretty much playing ever since then. The depth and complexity of it and how challenging it is sort of reminded me a lot of StarCraft 2. The same sort of thing that appealed to me there appealed here as well. So that was a pretty natural transition despite the big difference in game types there.
Ecstasy, did you get those questions that you've had lined up to ask?
Yeah, they're kind of like random question. Actually, the first one's kind of half serious. In your opinion, what is the best endgame class or build, and why?
That was with unlimited currency, right? Was the kind of the tag there. So that's interesting because there's lots of like really good viable endgame classes and builds that can do every single type of map and every single mod and stuff like that. But I kind of like thought about this unlimited currency thing. It's like not something that you usually think about that often because you're like, I have to deal with limitations. But I think if you had no limitations on currency, if you, I guess, spent thousands of dollars on R&T, or for whatever other reason, maybe you just found 5 mirrors in a row or something like that, and had unlimited currency, what I would probably do is create a weapon-based build. It would probably be with swords. The reason for that is weapon-based builds tend to have higher potential than spellcaster-based builds or totems or summons or anything like that. There's a lot you can do with those with limited currency, and they can be very strong and very viable, but with a weapon-based build, you have much higher potential. Perfectly rolled weapon is going to just blow away even like a really well-made spellcaster build. So I'd probably go with swords as well because they have the highest potential out of any weapons in terms of the passives, and the fact that you're getting the accuracy implicit as well means you can go for like a crit accuracy sort of build. So that's kind of starting the theme of the build. I'd go for something like crit accuracy with swords. I'd probably go for like a max block build and either evasion or iron reflexes into armor, and just spend so much currency on getting perfect gear. So you'd be able to deal with like any reflect or anything like that because you could just spend amazing amounts of currency on getting super defensive gear and then having your weapon be insane as well and just destroy everything. And there's some people that have approached this already. I've seen people with that sort of gear and these sorts of weapons, and it can be pretty phenomenal, and that's even without unlimited currency.
Oh, yeah, so that would be like maybe like a spectral throw or a ground slam type.
Yeah, I'd probably go like, I think the highest potential attack skill is probably like either double strike or dual strike. I suppose if you could get 2 perfect weapons, double strike would be pretty insane. So maybe something like that, I think, but spectral throw would certainly be viable. Although I think when you're getting into that range of like, gearing, you probably don't really need to worry about having a ranged attack, and you can probably just face tank everything in anyway, so probably double strike or something like that.
Yeah, nice. So, what's your favorite in-game dance emote and why?
I have to be honest. I haven't really played around with too many of the dance emotes. I don't own any of them myself, but off the top of my head, I think my favorite one's probably the Marauder, because I like that path. Like ZiggyD have snuck in as many references to New Zealand as possible in their game, even like down to the grasses and stuff that spawn in the different zones are Kiwi grasses. And having the Marauder do a very traditional sort of Maori dance is pretty cool. I quite like that. I'm fond of it for that reason.
Yeah, same here, man.
Fantastic. Alright, next question I had here. So it's a bit down the order, but we're just jumping around a show up here. But without breaking any of the non-disclosure sort of consent or NDCs you've made, if you've got access to inside details, are you willing to make any prediction on what future act contents will involve, and where do you think Enray class will head next after we've done with Sign?
I honestly have no idea, and not for lack of trying. I do push Chris all the time for like hints on the new upcoming patches, but sometimes he'll give me like a screenshot of an upcoming skill or change to the passive tree or something like that a little bit in advance. But for the most part, they've been super tight-lipped about the new act, and they know what they're doing as well. It's not like they haven't got it planned out. They've got it all planned out. They've got acts in advance planned out. But they won't tell anyone. They won't tell myself. They won't tell Crypt. They won't tell anyone. No matter how much e-fame you have, they won't. Keeping very secretive about that.
Okay, so okay, you can freely sort of daydream away. So where do you think we'll head?
I'm not very good at lore in action RPGs, so I reckon if you looked into the lore a lot, there might be some clues there. But just a guess, I'd say probably up into the mountains of the island. There's usually always mountains in like tropical sort of islands that raid class is. So I'm expecting to head up into the mountains. I think that would be pretty cool in terms of a setting point of view. It'd be significantly different, and it'll be super fun as well. Potentially, if the mountains are high enough, maybe there's even some snow caps or something out there. That'd be rad.
It would be. Deefa?
I'd be curious to know, have you had a chance to design a unique item, or are you in the process of designing one?
Well, unfortunately, $1,000 is a little bit much for the YouTube wages. But it is something I would like to do eventually, or maybe in the future. Maybe I don't know. I'm going to be with Path of Exile for a long time, so it's definitely something I want to do. And I have thought a bit about what sort of unique I'd want to do. So assuming I could get $1,000 from somewhere, the unique that I'd design would be one that rewarded people who planned a lot and like who thought about the game and had a good game knowledge moving forwards, and then were able to take advantage of it. So to make sense of this, my idea was to have like a ring or something like that can be equipped in either ring slot or the amulet slot, and depending which socket I don't know how technically feasible this is, but depending on which spot you put it in, it gives you a massive boost to resistances for only one specific resist. So maybe the right hand gives you lightning resist. This is like maybe like 70 plus lightning resist and an increased lightning resist max cap, so you can overcap your lightning by a ridiculous amount and maybe like get it up to 80 or 85 or something like that. However, the drawback is that it reduces your other resistances to like negative 60 or something like that. So, this isn't a very viable endgame item or anything like that. But what it does reward, and assuming this drops nice and early on, so maybe it's droppable like a tabula rasa right from the very beginning, and what it does is it rewards people who know, okay, the Merveil fight, all about cold. I put this in this socket here, and she's not going to be able to hurt me. And then this next fight coming up, okay, there's going to be lightning there. This next zone, it's all about fire. We're going into crematorium, let's put the fire resist on. And rewards players who do that. I'm all about the game knowledge, and I like swapping around resistance rings when you're leveling up to try and get rewarded by sort of knowing what's coming. And I think that would be a good unique that would reward that. Anyway, that's my idea at least.
Yeah, definitely. I think having a res ring would be fantastic. Yeah, that's a good one. Also,
Okay.
It's nice if you know what the res is going to be, and you can just kind of obviously just down bosses quite easily in certain acts. But anyway, back to you, Casey.
Yep, Deefa, before we get to your next question, I thought we'd just cross to Crazy had a question. So, Crazy, do you want to pose your question you've just listed in chat there to Ziggy?
Sure thing, man.
It was super similar to the question asked previously, but like, how would you, I guess, how would you feel about like a item that opened up builds to say shields and such like that, like a weapon, technically, like a shield that had physical damage based on blocked chance and stuff like that?
Man, I would love that so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my thing about shields. I'm in love with shields as like a part of history and an item, a piece of gear. And throughout history, shields were used very offensively, like looking back over different like Celtic fighting styles and things like that, which I guess I am a little bit of a history buff. But seeing the way people used shields then, it was never as really defensive. Like sure, the Romans did like the whole testudo thing where there was defensive kind of looking, but a lot of the time it was like you were attacking with your sword and shield at the same time. So having a shield with some sort of offensive capabilities on it, maybe you could even use it to attack with, but it also, obviously still very defensive, would be super cool. I would love to see something like that.
Yeah.
Awesome question, man.
Deefa?
Right. Well, if you could add a new skill or mechanic to the game, what would you add?
So this one I've I've wanted this one for a very long time, and I've talked to Chris about it, and I'm pretty sure it's never going to come, at least not in the way I hope. But I'm pretty sure it's not. I'm not alone in this either. But I want Piety's Lightning Ball or something similar. Basically, a skill that you can cast, a spell that is a big ball of moving energy, and then it attacks enemies multiple times as it passes through them. So maybe it does a lot of damage if it hits them, but it also arcs out and attacks them. Now, the reason why this can't come in its current form, and this is why Chris Wilson said that it's probably not coming anytime soon, is because it's ridiculously hard to balance something like that. When your Piety uses it against you, it's fine, you're just a single target. It's a pretty dangerous attack, like Piety's Lightning Ball. If you've ever sort of run along with it or got caught in it, you kind of know how dangerous that is. But against a tightly clustered packs of mobs, it would just change the entire farming metagame too much. Like, it would be so efficient to just cast those and kind of run with them, and everything would just get destroyed. So I think it would be way too OP. But I would love to see a spell like that. I'd love to have Piety's Lightning Ball. If that was announced to be added into the game in like 2 weeks' time, I would drop everything I was doing. I would suicide all of my characters, and I would plan a build for it.
So that's a bit like Frozen Orb from Diablo 2?
Yeah, a lot like Frozen Orb from Diablo 2. That'd work pretty much the same way.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to ask a question here on behalf of one of our other officers who actually lives in Canada now. He relocated recently, so he's probably asleep at this point in time. But it's a pile of fish, and he's got a question of what has been your best moment of PoE? And you're not allowed to refer to your recent epic health point moment shared on your YouTube site, which I think I saw 2 or 3 days ago that was released. So what's been your best moment in PoE, and what has been your worst moment?
Alright, well, besides that was a pretty epic moment, but I guess when you're asking, like, my best moment, or what has been the time that I've had the most fun with Path of Exile, it was starting the, first couple of weeks of Nemesis League was really insanely good for me. Around that time, I'd just gone full-time on YouTube, so I kind of had said to myself, I'm fully able to dedicate as much time to this as I can, and my content and everything's going to be a lot better if I can put in like 10-hour days into Path of Exile. If I play at a very high level, my content's going to get better, and I'm probably going to enjoy it more. And my suspicions were very true. I jumped in, I played right from the very outside, despite ripping to Blood Rain in the Dominus fight in normal on my first character. I did eventually catch back up to the guys I was playing with. I was playing with Willy Wonka's crew and a few other guys. And just getting into the league on a really hardcore level, kind of early on as well, and doing a lot of the trading. Trading was so fun in those first few weeks. It was just so vibrant. The economy was just so pumping. It was really exciting to run a shop thread and have people contacting me constantly. I almost couldn't farm sometimes, the amount of stuff I was selling like that. And also jumping around, talking to different streamers, just chatting and playing with a lot of different people. It was just a whole new Path of Exile experience for me. So PoE is really a game that rewards you more the more you put into it. It's a bit tough if you have time limitations, and you can still really enjoy it if you can only play an hour or so a day. But if you can sink in that extra time and try and play really hard, it does really reward you for doing so. And I had a ton of fun at the start of Nemesis. And I guess my worst moment. I think my worst moment. I don't really have a thing that sucks. When I die in Path of Exile, I kind of enjoy it. I find it more entertaining than anything, so I never really get too annoyed about that, or even if I die to desync, it's just something that happens and is more entertaining than annoying. But my worst moment was probably trying to make a pure evasion ranger, and I'd actually tried this twice, and this was before any of the buffs, so before dodge was buffed to 40%, before the evasion wheel at Scion, before all of that stuff, and there was even a buff before that. It was before a buff that was before those as well. Trying to make evasion work. I believed it could work, and I think it probably could have if I had gone for a shield max block sort of build, which is pretty popular now, but it was something nobody was really doing back then. But I tried to make an evasion bow character work. I really wanted it to work. I tried twice, was making build videos and everything, and people were super psyched for me to make it work, but I just couldn't. I couldn't. And it felt pretty disheartening, letting everyone down by making these crappy builds that just didn't work. So that was probably my worst moment, but then again, even that has an upside, because I enjoyed the challenge, and despite the build sucking and feeling like a bit of a loser for a while there, I was able to kind of learn from that and make sick builds after that. So I guess I do categorize that as my worst moment in Path of Exile, though.
Fair enough. That evasion has caused a lot of pain, I think, for all the range classes throughout the PoE journey.
Definitely. So punishing.